All right, we are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Nick Barris, along with News Channel 5 legal analyst Nick Leonardo. We're leading up, Nick, to the 9 o'clock hour where we'll take you inside the courtroom at the Birch Building. Judge Monty Watkins and the cast of characters, the attorneys, prosecution, and defense. We don't think Brandon Vandenberg and Corey Beatty will be there. Beatty could be since he lives in town, but sure. Vandenberg not likely. But I really think I'm very interested to see what happens today because it's going to set the stage for what we're going to see on November 30th, right?
Absolutely. It's going to say a lot of the groundwork. You know, I think the judge will take a lot of these motions under advisement, which means he's not going to rule from the bench.
Really?
I think that, you know, in a few days he'll issue a written order, and then, you know, obviously News Channel 5 will bring that to you as soon as it comes out. But I don't think he's going to rule on all of those motions today.
He'll just be hearing the arguments.
He'll be hearing the arguments, and then he'll take it under advisement, maybe do a little research on it, and then issue a written order. But I could be wrong. You never know. It's hard to handicap these kind of things.
All right, let's go next to Ann. Ann, good morning. Hi, Ann.
This is in response to the last caller.
Sure.
10 years ago, athletes drugged and raped my daughter. Not a day goes by that she has not overcome it, and not a day goes by that I have forgotten it. 3 years, 6 years, 10 years is a drop in the bucket to what those men did to that young lady, and they deserve everything they should get. And I only pray that this child does go to court on November 30th so this young lady can get on with her life, because until this is settled, it is her life that is destroyed and no one else's.
Thank you for your call, and thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. Of course, she has a very personal point of view with what happened, but anyone who saw some of this disturbing video is going to be saying the same thing. You know, we don't want a lesser verdict, you know, when they were nailed the first time because of what we saw.
Well, I mean, I think this destroys a lot of people's lives, quite honestly. Not, you know, you know, obviously the alleged victim, but I think in addition, you know, you have both all of the perpetrators, okay, who, and if they get punished, rightfully so. But then what about their families? What about, you know, Vandenberg's mom and dad or Beatty's mother and father? They didn't do anything, okay? So this really touches and concerns, and the alleged victim's family. This touches and concerns a whole lot of lives here, and this is just, and it's typical of the criminal justice system, and it's tragic all the way around. Yeah.
Not only that, it's a big picture. The city of Nashville.
Sure. Vanderbilt.
A very prominent university. I mean, I tell you this, they can't possibly like the Vanderbilt rape trial. Who wants to hear that?
No, that's exactly
and that's tough.
Right.
They want this to go away as well, and I don't blame them at all. And we'll see as this process moves forward. Let's go to Christy. Christy, good morning.
Yeah, I was kind of talking about that caller that called in, talking about 3 years or something like that. They didn't do 3 years in jail. They've been on bond, most of it. What did they do, like 6 months?
Well, that's true, yeah. You're correct. They did not serve that much time yet, no.
Things like, inconvenience them because they committed a crime. They committed rape defined to the law. And talk about the family, I'm not trying to talk about Vandenberg's father or anything because I don't know how he raised him, but evidently he didn't raise him to have respect for all people, or he wouldn't have been there doing that. And Vandenberg shows no remorse at all. I mean, what is his mental state? Is he like narcissist or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm the only reporter to have ever had the opportunity to interview Brandon Vandenberg, and when I did hear, and he came to the station, he was very contrite and, you know, talked about his innocence and that. I mean, in his mind, I get the sense that he truly believes he did nothing wrong. He may have been there when something bad happened, but that he was not part of it or something is kind of the way I take from that as I did all these interviews with him. You know, I haven't talked with him in quite some time since, but that's kind of the way I took it, that he did nothing wrong. And he felt abandoned by it to some degree by, you know, those that, you know, he was with the football team and put on upon.
Well, you know, that's a tough pill to swallow, this criminal responsibility for conduct of another. I mean, you know, the typical example you get is, you know, some kind of a bank robbery where, you know, you're the getaway driver, but you didn't go in and rob anybody, you didn't shoot anybody, you just drove the car. In this particular situation, you have, you know, an analogous theory of liability, and that he's kind of guilty by association for his inaction inaction. And I think, the prosecution honestly did a really good job in the first trial to say it wasn't his inaction. He was right in the middle of it. He didn't touch her, but he was right in the middle of this.
There were the allegations that he handed out condoms. There were allegations that he was more or less coaching and orchestrating it, though, he was not in any of the video. Now, he was in the surveillance video from the dormitory, but he was not in the real telltale cell phone video that showed an actual assault occurring.
Well, and hats off to the state, because they had a hard job there. You're trying to convict somebody who didn't touch this woman, okay? Yeah. And so that's going to be a bit of a stretch. And so I think they really focused quite a bit on showing that he's a bad actor. He's a bad guy. Not only was he just there, but it's not inactivity. Like I said, these are the things. He's the ringleader, and I think they went to great lengths to point that out. It seemed like at some points during that 3 weeks, I thought this was simply the state versus Vandenberg.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of just bad things that came in that if I was a juror, I wouldn't have liked it.
Let's go next to Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Cindy.
How you doing?
Good.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Good morning. Fine, thanks.
Anyway, the thing I was calling about is, well, I kind of agree with that one caller, the first one. I think, when most rapists get off at 2 or 3 years, even though this was a horrible rape, they usually do. They get off in 2 or 3 years. They don't go for 20, 25 years. And people got to realize the girl did go in there, and I understand what everybody's saying. Well, she was out of it, but I've been so darn drunk before where I've gotten cabs home. One time I spent about $300 back when I was like 18 because I couldn't remember where I lived, but I got home.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, things like this happen. So what you do is you learn you never get yourself in that situation again.
Well, sure, but that goes to the point. I don't care how drunk or incapacitated this individual was. Under no circumstance does that give anyone a license to rape her. We've been over that time and time again.
Sure.
You do not hold the victim responsible for that because, instead, what should be happening, as with you, Cindy, if you're that drunk, the people around you should be helpful. They shouldn't rape you. All right, so that's very obvious. You can't go to that. But as she said, in terms of sentencing, it is interesting. You made an analogy during one of the breaks. I mean, we're doing another very high-profile case, the Holly Bobo case, and Zach Adams is charged with first-degree murder, and they're going after the death penalty on him. Short of the death penalty, if he were to get time behind bars, potentially he's only doing for murder maybe 10 years more than what these accused rapists could get if they were getting the full amount of sentencing time.
Technically, if they were guilty of what they were found guilty of previously, there's no doubt that they could, if the judge were to run those sentences consecutive and stack them on top of one another, barring the death penalty, they would actually receive more time in incarceration than Zach Adams would for doing what he has allegedly done and killing an individual. But it's important to point out that we have, when it comes to sentencing, the judges, we have these grids and we have the statutes, and judges have some leeway, okay? And this is probably the biggest leeway Judge Watkins has in a situation like this, is whether or not to stack those charges or whether to run them concurrently. And really, I think that there's only one factor that would allow for that, and that is to engage in a crime when the risk of life is high.
But I'm going like this. That means wrap it.
I'm sorry.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back after this.